The Steve Austin Show is brought to you in part by Great Clips. At Great Clips, they want you to love your haircut. That's why they created Clip Notes. Notes that tell them what you like, so you get your same great haircut every time, anywhere. With Clip Notes, no matter which stylist cuts your hair, you'll get the haircut you want. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
The following program is a podcast1.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting here in my office at 316 Gimmick Street. Hey, I got Kurt Angle on the podcast today, and I know this is the family-friendly version of the show, but we were talking about Kurt's battle with addiction and what it took for him to get clean, and he drops a couple of organic F-bombs in this show, and I decided to let them stay in because of how and where they're used in the conversation. Kurt speaks very honestly and candidly about his addiction to pain pills and his problems with alcohol and what it took to finally get clean. So we talk about his many neck injuries, the state of the pro wrestling business today, and whether he believes he still has a future in the squared circle. So like I said, I just want to give you plenty of warning that there are 2 F-bombs in this show, but you'll understand when you listen why we had to leave them in. Hey, man, I'm sitting here in my office, 316 Gimmick Street, cutting open to this podcast, and, you know, I was thinking about breaking down the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view with Wade Keller, but I only got a chance to watch just a few of the matches, and the last match that I did watch, shut this window, we got a lot of construction going on over here in the neighborhood. One of the matches I did watch was the Hell in a Cell match between Charlotte and Sasha Banks, and Charlotte ended up coming out on top in that match. She is the new women's champion for, I guess, the 3rd time. And these women headlined the pay-per-view. And they did a tremendous job in the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match and worked their asses off. Sasha, hometown of Boston, everybody was behind her. Man, they put on a hell of a damn show, told a great story, took their time, didn't rush anything, sold their asses off. It was very physical. I was wondering, what those women were going to be able to do. And, man, they pulled off a classic, in my opinion. So, man, shout out to Charlotte and Sasha Banks for having a hellacious match at that Hell in a Cell. And, hell, I watched a little bit of the wrap-up with Renee Young and Booker T and Jerry Lawler and Lita. And Lita was pretty emotionally moved. She was so proud of those girls for what they had done because, back in the day, Lita was kind of queen of the extreme style wrestling. And these 2 women went out there and, hey, man, they gave it everything they had, going through some tables, announce tables, all the bells and whistles. And it all made sense. They told a great story. And those 2 just have great chemistry. And I just like both of them so much because Charlotte, man, chip off the old block. Sasha, just the whole package, very attractive, just very athletic. Good swagger. She's just a great wrestler. She's just a great talent. So shout out to both women. Their futures are obviously super bright. Put on a hell of a show. And when 2 women get into Hell in a Cell match, following 2 other Hell in a Cell matches, and come out like they did with the bust-ass, badass match, man, that's doing something. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire pay-per-view. I saw bits and pieces of a lot of the other stuff, but I saw that match in its entirety, and it was a damn good one. So I'll recommend it at the end of the podcast that you watch the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view because what I saw, I enjoyed. I just didn't get a chance to watch enough of it to actually break it down. But like I said, to repeat myself one more time, Charlotte and Sasha Banks, shout out. Great job, ladies. Hey, man, I'm getting ready to head down to South Texas here in a couple weeks. And I can't wait to get down to South Texas to hang out with Ted Fowler 361, get the place ready for deer season, and get in the tractor, mow everything up, get that place gussed up and looking the way it's supposed to. It turns out I'm going to get out there a little bit later than I'd like to, just with all the obligations that I've got going on. I've got some more people coming by the podcast, some great interviews coming up, and just some business with Kawasaki. Doing some good things with those folks, and looking forward to getting down to Texas to get on my Kawasaki mules and start riding them around and seeing what we can scare up out of the brush. It's going to be an interesting deer season this year, and we'll be sending lots of pictures on Twitter account, myself, Steve Austin BSR, and Ted Fowler 361 on Twitter. And, man, I'm just looking forward to getting away from Los Angeles for a little bit and getting out there in the peace and the quiet of the Broken Skull Ranch. We've had a lot of rain this year. We've been feeding protein. Our fawn crop was astronomical, probably about 80%, 85% survival rate. The deer, with all the rain, with all the protein we've been feeding, it should be a hellacious year. And we'll get out there. We'll start looking for a few weeks, and then we'll start, getting down to business. I'm looking forward to seeing a couple coyotes. I built a new 308 this year. I'm looking forward to trying that thing out, put a new scope on it, and I got a new rig, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. Hey, man, I'm not going to sit here and shoot the breeze too long because I wanted to get to my interview with Kurt Angle. It was good to talk to Kurt, and the reason I wanted to talk to Kurt was just a few months ago, I saw a headline in a magazine or online. It says, I was taking 65 Vicodin a day. And I sent him a text. I said, man, are you ribbing me? You were really taking 65 Vicodin a day? And he goes, yeah. And I said, hey, man, would you want to come on the podcast and talk about it? And he said, yeah, when I get through doing all my obligations. Kurt's been traveling. He's been very busy with a bunch of projects that he's got working on. So finally, we set up a phone call, and we started shooting the breeze, talking about a few things in the past. Then we got into his stuff about addiction, how he kicked out of that. And, I've talked to Kurt, a couple of years ago, and it's always fun talking to Kurt. He's a blue-chip athlete, probably one of the greatest athletes that I've ever met, winning a gold medal in the 1996 Olympics, having the incredibly stellar career he had inside the squared circle as a professional wrestler. 8 some odd years with WWE, 10 with TNA, a few other, places worldwide. He works all over the place now, picking his spots, doing the indie stuff, and he's really enjoying that, as you'll hear in the interview. But man, he's just a rare breed. You don't see too many guys that come out of the Olympics with a gold medal, come into the business and learn it as fast as he did. And hell, he was main eventing with me a year and a half in the business, and that's almost unheard of. But anyway, before we get to Kurt Angle, I got a question for you. Have you ever been at work or maybe at the gym or out with family and friends and you start to worry that maybe you didn't lock your front door before you left, or maybe you didn't close all the windows? Are you worried that you left your house wide open to any thief who wanted to come in and steal your stuff? If you've ever asked yourself any of those questions, then you need Simply Safe Home Security. They got an arsenal of sensors to protect your entire home and keep your family safe. And here's the best part. You don't have to sign a long-term contract. There are no hidden fees, and they won't gouge you on the price. You can get Simply Safe Home Protection for just $14.99 a month. Simply Safe is wireless and portable with a cellular connection built in. You get professional monitoring with police dispatch, so your home really is safe around the clock. And man, it's easy to install and even easier to use. Y'all know about my battles with technology, and even I can install and use Simply Safe. That's how easy it is. So protect your home the smart way. Visit simplysafeaustin.com. Go right now, and you'll also get free shipping on your order and a free keychain remote worth $25. It only takes a minute. simplysafeaustin.com. That's simply SIMPLI safeaustin.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, check 1 2, check 1 2. I'm talking to Kurt Angle. Kurt, how are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Where you at? Pittsburgh?
I'm in Pittsburgh, yeah. Home with my wife and kids. My wife's due to have a baby in about a week, so we're waiting impatiently.
How many kids you gonna have now?
This is number 5.
Oh, my God.
I wanted 6, but the wife said no. 5 is it.
You really wanted 6 kids?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I grew up with 5 brothers and sisters, so I wanted the same for my kids.
Hey, man, I saw this crazy article online. It was a while back, and I texted you, and I'm looking at the article right now. Kurt Angle says he took 65 Vicodin a day at the height of his addiction issues. Hey, let's get to that, but let's get to this in a minute. What are you doing right now? Because, when I was looking over, what you've done in the world of professional wrestling, hell, you debuted at what year in WWF?
That would have been the end of 99.
Maybe
you're right. The end of '99. The end of '99.
But I couldn't believe that you've spent more time in TNA than you did in WWE.
Yeah, 3 more years. Yep. I left in 2006, and I went 10 full years in TNA. I only went 7 WWE.
So what are you doing right now? Are you still with TNA? Are you taking some time off? I don't really watch the product anymore. I don't even know what channel they're on. What are you doing?
No, I took this year off. I wanted to take a break. I actually got the chance to wrestle a few guys that I wanted to wrestle before I step out. One was Cody Rhodes. I got a chance to work with him a couple of times. It's crazy, man. These indies now, they're doing really well, especially in the UK, Scotland. I mean, they're getting 4,000 to 7,000 fans at these events, and they're live streaming on pay-per-view. And I mean, the money's incredible, especially for an indie show. So it's pretty good. Wrestling right now is really good, no matter where you are. Never thought I'd get paid the money I'm getting paid to wrestle with these indies.
Okay, you're making big money on the indie scene, but how are the other guys on the indie cards getting paid? Are they getting taken care of as well?
I don't know. I know a couple of the wrestlers were, they didn't really tell me the amount they were making, but they were pretty happy with what they're getting paid. I don't really know. I don't really dabble on other people's business, but it's just, I wrestled at. I just did it on the 6th and the 8th of October. I wrestled Cody Rhodes and a kid named Joe Hendry. I'm wrestling Joe Coffey in November in Scotland. I can't believe the outcome and how they've been able to. These companies in the UK, I think they're going to really start, getting some steam. I think that they're going to end up getting TV deals and they're going to grow bigger. For some reason, wrestling right now over there, it seems to be a lot hotter than it is in the States.
Hey, what's the quality on the indie scene? And I don't mean this any disrespect to indie workers, but by and large, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I mean, there was a lot of guys out there that weren't so great that were on the indie scene. Now it seems like the talent base is up, and WWE is actively recruiting from that indie scene. But just from the level of workmanship from top to bottom of the card, what are you seeing out there, Kurt? And specifically, I would think probably doing business in the UK, those guys are a little bit more technical oriented than stateside wrestlers.
You're absolutely right, Steve. They are more technically oriented. And I think that right now, I really believe the indie scene is just about as good as it is in WWE. I wouldn't say completely because, obviously WWE gets the cream of the crop and they continue to recruit and they have a lot of talented individuals. But the indie scene isn't that much worse. I mean, there are a lot of great matches, a lot of great wrestlers. I was on a card with Cody Rhodes, Del Rio, myself. There are a few other wrestlers that were former WWE or TNA talent. It's these cards. It's not just one person now that's headlining it. You're going to have 5 or 6 wrestlers that have made it to the big time that are going to be on these cards, and it's ridiculous. But I never thought I'd live to see the day that happened.
I was surprised when Cody Rhodes announced that he was going to leave WWE because I guess maybe he felt a little bit creatively stifled. And, the thing about that gig was it was such a good gig because not only was he gainfully employed, but as was his wife. So now he's on the indie scene. So my question to you is, what kind of style, what kind of match did you guys work with? Because, Cody Rhodes, I know him as Cody Rhodes. I know him as Stardust. So what was his style in the ring when he worked with you? One of the greatest of all time, Olympic background, gold medal, obviously. What kind of style did you work and why were you so stuck on wanting to wrestle Cody Rhodes?
Well, I always believed in his talent. I think I understand why he left. I don't think he's going to be gone from there forever. I think he will go back eventually. I just think he wanted to break, and he wanted to do something where he could just kind of find himself. I think that in WWE, he was doing what they wanted him to do, and I know that he wanted to elaborate more on the Stardust character, but it seemed like that watching, he was on TV every week, so I give WWE credit for that. I just didn't see him progressing up the ranks. I just saw him continuing to be where he was.
Whose
and I think he might have been...
Do you think that's the writer's fault, or is that just because they didn't see him where he thought he should be?
I think you're right. I don't think they saw him where he thought he should be. I think a lot of other people would agree with Cody, but at the same time, I mean, I look at WWE and there are a lot of good talent right now. Now, their style, they definitely have picked up the pace a little bit more, and I think they need to pull that back a little bit and get back to being a little more old school. I think the paces are going really fast, and I think the one thing that they're not doing is they're not selling as much as they should. I think that down the road, if they continue to do that and keep picking up the pace, it could kill the business eventually. Wrestling goes in cycles, and there was a time I remember when I was in WWE where I'd say about my 50 straight matches where I didn't tie up. I mean, it started with punches, and but then it slowed down, and then the style, then it came into technical wrestling, and I know you and I did a lot of that. So I think that it'll come around again. I just think right now they're probably giving a lot of these wrestlers less time on TV, and when you give them less time, they don't have time to tell that story at the beginning that, show them their wrestling abilities. Instead, they just go right into a high spot.
And that's kind of like, their automatic reaction is just try to, put 15 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag just because you've cut them short on time. They're trying to get noticed. They're trying to get a reaction. Yeah. So, they're being forced to work harder rather than smarter, and smarter would be, with respect to character development, doing something to, resonate or generate a relationship with that crowd, whether they love them or they hate them, whether they're working heel or baby. But, I understand guys put in a bad way sometimes with cutting time on television matches. But to your point, the business has sped up so much that if it speeds up anymore, it's just going to come crashing down. What I've noticed, I don't know if you get a chance to watch any of the NXT shows. I don't get a chance to watch a whole lot of wrestling anymore, but when I watch the NXT shows, it's just a more organic style. It reminds me of the older school presentation. I love the commentary, and they're working basic holds and basic matches. They're actually they believe that they're wrestlers. They are wrestlers. They're not pretending to be wrestlers. Yeah. And I always think that's one of the keys to success. You can't pretend to be one. You have to be one. But to your point, I believe, as you do, that the business has to slow down just a frog hair, because you can only keep up with so much.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think a lot of these guys feel like they have to have a beginning to the match. If they're getting cut, 3 or 4 minutes from a 10-minute match down to 6, then start with the heat. It's not a bad thing to do that. I agree with you 100%, Steve. I think these guys they want to tell a whole entire story, and they don't have time to do it, so they just speed it up and try to get it all in. And you're right, it doesn't compute on TV. As a fan, you're like, well, these guys went 150 miles an hour and nobody sold anything. So I think you're right. I think that if they don't have the time, then start with the heat. Just, I know you agree with me, and it's probably the best thing they could do.
What kind of freedom do you have out there in the independent scene? I would imagine that anytime you go anywhere, you're booked. You pretty much have full control of over what you want to do with respect to the entire match, including the finish. Do you find it liberating to have so much freedom, more freedom? I'm sure you had plenty of freedom in TNA, some in WWE, but this is probably, I would guess, the most freedom you've ever had in your career with respect to doing these one-off matches or a string of matches with these indies.
Yeah, I mean, they give me creative control. I could do what I want to do. To be honest with you, most of the matches I've wrestled this year, I lost. I don't see winning at these indies as important to me. It's more of having a great match with the guys, and because they're younger, I think giving them a rub, even if it is a rub with one of the best wrestlers ever. To me, the winning and losing part isn't that important right now. It's just getting my reps in and just staying sharp. next year I plan on going back somewhere. I don't know where yet, but, I wanted to keep my skills fairly sharp, so I booked about 5 matches this year, one with Rey Mysterio, a couple with Cody Rhodes. I got one coming up with Del Rio, a kid named Joe Coffey, a wrestler kid named Zack Sabre Jr. He, I think he was in the WWE Cruiserweight tournament. Very talented kid. So the guys I'm wrestling, I have pretty much picked, knowing that I would be able to wrestle these talented kids. Some of them never been in WWE and probably will be there very soon, and most of them have already been there.
Speaking of the young kids coming up in the business, I ain't never seen anyone pick up pro wrestling as fast as you did when you first started. But before we talk about that, I got to say thanks to one of the sponsors who makes this podcast possible, Dollar Shave Club. I know most of you people are already familiar with Dollar Shave Club and have already signed up to get their great quality razors that are a fraction of the price of the big razor companies. And if you ain't already signed up to have Dollar Shave Club deliver these razors right to your front door, what are you waiting for? Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Steve to get yourself hooked up. And while you're there, check out the other great products that Dollar Shave Club has that will make you look and smell like $1 million, like Dr. Carver's Shave Butter. Use that with your Dollar Shave Club razor, and your face will feel as soft and smooth as a baby's butt. Dollar Shave Club makes stuff for your skin, your hair, and your underparts. So sign up now at dollarshaveclub.com/Steve, and you'll never have to step foot in the mall again. And once you're in the club, you'll see that not only do you have the best grooming products on the market, they're also affordable. Your wallet will love you. And right now is your chance to see for yourself why so many of us love Dollar Shave Club. If you're not a member yet and have never joined, now is the time. You'll get your first month of razors for free. Just pay shipping. After that, it's only a few bucks. So join today. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Steve. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Steve.
What would happen if a well-known Chicago news anchor quit his job to drive a car for Lyft? What if he captured the real stories of the real passengers who ended up in the back seat? And what would happen if he aired those stories in a weekly podcast? I'm Anthony Ponce, and I did that. So download Backseat Rider at podcast1.com, the Podcast One app, or subscribe at iTunes.
Kurt, with your incredible amateur background, all the accolades, the awards, the gold medal, the career that you had, and all of a sudden you come into the pro wrestling scene. I've never seen anybody in the history of the business pick it up, like you have. So you're a blue chip athlete, but now at 47 years of age, what's the drop off from you at your prime, let's call that 100%, to where do you think you perform at now?
That's tough, Steve. I mean, I'm not going to BS anybody. I'm definitely not in my prime. I can still go, but I would say probably 85% of where I used to be. There are things I can't do, and I won't even try it, but there are a lot of things that I'm very good at, and I continue to be. So I just stick with my strengths and stay away from my weaknesses.
I'll never forget, I guess it was ringside somewhere back in WWE. Maybe it was Canada or up in the Northeast, and you and Chris Benoit had a cage match, and I think you missed a moonsault off the top. Wasn't that that match? And I was doing
I had to have knee surgery.
Oh, my God. I was watching that match because I was right there. Hang on, my wife is walking in. Let me get my wife in and continue the story. Anyway, there I was ringside. I mean, and y'all had an incredible match. Of course, you had great chemistry. The intensity of the match was off the charts. When I saw you miss that moonsault, I was like, holy smokes. It was just unbelievable. So when you look back at your career, and that wasn't necessarily the most dangerous bump in the world, but I think you said it led to knee surgery. Looking back, did you put yourself at high risk for a shorter career doing the physical style that you wrestled? And I wouldn't say that you took crazy or stupid bumps, but you had a very physical, intense style.
Yeah, I did. And looking back now, I do regret some of the bumps I took. I remember that match very well. And the one thing I remember when I watched it over again was the look on your face. And it was one of those feelings where I felt like, I don't think Austin wants to work with me. He thinks I'm too dangerous. When you're the guy, which you were at the time, Chris and I were vying for that spot to wrestle you. And, so we wanted to throw everything on the line in that match. And I think we went a little bit too far. Chris did the headbutt from the top of the cage, and he had to have neck surgery. His arm was literally like getting smaller every single day. And then the worst bump was when I took a German from him from the top rope. That was way worse than the moonsault, and that probably had a lasting effect on the neck injuries that were going to come in the next couple of years.
Hey, how do you explain all the rash of cervical injuries, basically the C-section of the neck? I was fused up in 2000. That was just from a pile driver. It wasn't because I was taking crazy bumps. I also had spinal stenosis. But certainly there's been a rash of cervical operations, and I think it's just because the business has sped up. And this is going back even 15 years. Just guys trying to push the limits, the girls too, trying to push the limits. What all did you have done to your neck?
Well, I did have a really bad span of bad luck from 2003 to 2006, where I broke my neck 4 separate times. I think the reason that is what you said. I was taking the wrong bumps, and I was rushing back to get back in the lineup as soon as I could, and I wasn't completely healed. When I went to TNA after 2006, I never had another neck injury. So it just went to show that I was doing way too much and not letting my body heal when I had the time off to do it. I was always thinking about how do I get back? What's the quickest way I could get back? And I chose neck surgeries that were literally that only took me 1 day to heal up. Not that I was 100%, but the doctor literally said, "Listen, you're gonna have neck surgery today. Tomorrow you can go in the gym and start working out again." And it was like, okay, that's great. And he didn't give me any limitations. And before I knew it, within 5 weeks, I was back in the lineup, and I shouldn't have been. I literally got hit with a chair 2 months later over the head by Brock Lesnar, and I broke my neck again. And then it just continued. I'd say 6 months after that, I broke my neck again against Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania. That was WrestleMania 20. And then about 10 months later, I broke my neck again. Just kept adding up. And our schedule back then, Steve, we were running hard. We were doing a lot of shows, probably close to 300 a year. My advice I give to people now, limit your bumps. And they say, well, is that the best advice you can give me? Because I thought maybe, learning technique and being a more technical wrestler. No, you want a long career, limit your bumps. Learn how to bump and stop bumping. And, save it for the matches and don't do anything too crazy. That's the best advice I could give to anybody if they want a nice, long, prolonged career.
And, I would 100% agree with you. Man, it was the fact that when I was finally able to, through all the 7.5 years of trials and tribulations and paying dues, to finally get the break and turn into Stone Cold Steve Austin, it was when I developed that character. The fact that I could go in the ring as well, what was the icing on the cake, but I had a well-rounded character. I could cut a promo. People felt for me. They either loved me or they hated me. And I would say the exact same thing for you. You operated at an extremely high level. Whether you were a babyface or a heel, you were over at the highest level you could be. And then when the bell rang, you could go. So I would say the same thing, man. It's just work on developing that character, learn how to work, learn how to tell a story, and just be able to elicit a response from people so that they care about you in one way, shape, or form, to be able to get into a position where you don't have to kill yourself and you can actually draw money. But when you say, Kurt, you broke your neck 4 different times, and let's go back to 96. Right before the Olympics, you had some issues with your necks. You were taking some painkillers or something to get you through the Olympics to get that gold medal. But when you say you broke your neck 4 different places or 4 different times, like at what levels and how were you breaking your neck? Because, I'm thinking cardiac devastation, paralysis. Yeah. How did this occur?
Well, in 96, I broke my neck 1 extra time. That's not the 4 times in WWE, but I broke my neck back then. It was about 4 months before the Olympics, and I wasn't allowed to take painkillers. I actually had a doctor that was sticking me in the neck with 12 different shots of Novocaine so I couldn't feel my neck. That's what got me through the trials and through the Olympics. But when I broke my neck, I got thrown on my head, and I broke levels 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I had 2 discs that were sticking directly in my spinal cord, so I was risking paralysis, and they couldn't do anything with it. If I had the surgery, I wouldn't be able to wrestle in the Olympics. So I was pretty much the only thing I could do is numb it up and wrestle. And I took that chance, and it worked out to my advantage. So when I got to WWE, first time I broke my neck was against Brock Lesnar. It was the first 2 times. I was on Brock's back, and if you know Brock, he can run pretty fast. And I had him in a chokehold, and he ran from one side of the ring to the other, and he turned his back to the turnbuckle, and when I hit it sideways, and my neck whiplashed sideways, and I heard 3 different cracks in my neck. And literally the next day I couldn't raise my left arm. So I had 3 broken vertebrae, C5, 6, and 7. That occurred. I got back right away, probably within 6 weeks. I wrestled Brock again at SummerSlam. We had a nice program going. I believe that's when I beat him. I made him tap out, and I won the title back. Then in November that same year, Brock hit me over the head with a chair, and it was my own fault because Chris Benoit and I were in a match with Brock, and he grabbed the chair, and Chris told him to swing sideways on him. I didn't tell Brock what to do. I should have told him to swing like a baseball bat, so he wasn't straight down on my head. Well, instead he hit Chris sideways, and then he brought the chair up over his head, and just full blow, just everything he had right on top of my head. And I couldn't get my hands up in time to block it, which we try to do. We try to get our hands in there, and I just took it full force, and I broke 4 vertebrae that time, I believe 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it was just another, pain in the ass surgery. I remember the doctor. Thing is, he said, listen, this is the 2nd surgery in a year. We can't do this again. And unfortunately, 5 months later, I broke my neck against Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania, and he would not do the surgery. He said, just heal up. So I took a general manager spot on SmackDown for about 5 months. I let the neck heal up, and obviously the discs weren't out of place. It was just the vertebrae were broken. So I didn't really have to have the surgery, and I was able to make it back. And then the 4th time I broke my neck was beginning 2006, right when I won the title on SmackDown. I had a Battle Royal, and I ended up wrestling one of my best matches against Undertaker, No Way Out, 2006. My neck was broken. I had 3 vertebrae broken at the time. And what was crazy is back then, the doctor cleared me. My neck was broken, and he was cool with me wrestling in that match. Probably because I broke it so many times, he was just like, what the hell, go ahead. The other times he didn't clear me. Only the 4th time is when the doctor said, go ahead and wrestle, just be careful. And I think he just gave up on me. So, that was the last time I had the surgery. Or I didn't have surgery that time, but that was the last time I broke my neck.
Okay, so what kind of symptoms were you having? Because obviously a broken neck is going to be probably inflicting a lot of pain, especially if something's stepping on a nerve. Or was it more just cracks in the C vertebrae themselves, which in and of itself, to me, it sounds like a very serious injury, but you could still perform to some degree with the crack in the vertebrae. I mean, because when I'm thinking broken neck, I'm thinking you're out of action completely.
Yeah, well, you're right. The thing with broken necks, it sounds a lot worse than it really is. You're absolutely right. If you have a crack in your neck's broken, one of the vertebrae. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't do anything. It just means that, you have maybe a hairline fracture in that vertebrae, and you're going to have a lot of pain. And I remember in 2003, I was introduced to painkillers. That was the first time I broke my neck in WWE. And I remember taking that first pill, and I was like, whoa, this makes me feel really good. I feel like I can, take on the world. And I can't feel my neck, and, the effect it had on me gave me more energy than I normally had. So I liked that feeling. And once I tried that, 1 turned to 2, 2 turned to 4, 4 turned to 8. And before I knew it, I was out of control. I was hiding it from WWE. I know there were times when I was slurring, and Vince would be like, are you all right? I was like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I really, really shrug it off. And, made him think that he was going crazy. But I literally, by the middle of 2003, I was on 65 extra strength Vicodin a day. I was getting it from 12 different doctors. I had a schedule book to make sure I didn't ask them too early or too late. You know, I had the schedule of when to call the doctors, when to get the prescriptions, which pharmacies to go to, so I didn't hit the same pharmacy, you know, like a CVS or a Walgreens. Back then, you could hit different pharmacies, and they didn't know if you got it from a different pharmacy. They didn't know if you. Now you can't do that anymore. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. I also was buying about 500 of them illegally every month. So I was, let's see, 1,500, 500. That's 2,000 a month I was taking, and that pans out to be about 62 to 65 Vicodin a day. It wasn't out of the norm for me to throw about 15 in my mouth right when I woke up. I remember the feeling I had when I woke up. I had chills. I was in a lot of pain. I was going through withdrawal, and I used to just take those pills and chew them up in my mouth and swallow them. And 2 minutes later, I was good. The crazy thing is, I after a while, it had no effect on me. I wasn't high anymore. I was just normal. I just felt
Kurt, that's 1,950 pills a month. Even with 12 doctors, that's seemingly impossible. You're straight up shooting with me on the 60.
Listen, Steve, I'll tell you this. An addict never lies about what they do. I know what I did. I know exactly how I did it. It wasn't that hard. I mean, it was a pain in the ass to get to the different pharmacies all the time, but it wasn't that hard to do. And, you know, I had a contact to get those pills illegally, right, too, and that helped me out tremendously. But I didn't know I was taking 65 a day. I know that every time I took it, every three or 4 hours, I was taking between 10 and 15 a pop. Charlie Austin Show and Benjamin, they'll tell you, they watched me do it. I didn't know it. You know, I'd be on the airplane, and I'd be sitting down, I'd pour it out of the bottle, and there'd be about 15 pills in my mouth. I'd throw them in my mouth and start chewing on them and swallow them. And they told me, they were like, Kurt, you were taking so many, and every 3 hours you were taking another handful. And, you know, after I competed, I'd say for about 10 months, I was taking 2,000 a month. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, the crazy thing is I don't have any liver damage. I should. You know, when you take that many pills, you're really chancing, you know, messing your body up pretty badly. I didn't have any problems. I've actually been, you know, I just got checked by my doctor 2 months ago. Blood work, everything's great. I don't know how I did it, Steve, but I did it. And it took me very long. It took me up till now to even talk about it. I never told anybody about how many I took, or, you know, but thing is, if I can help somebody else not make that mistake, I'm going to speak publicly about it.
Well, I mean, the first time when I read that, I was just shocked, and I was like, you know, in 2000,
you were probably like, he's full of crap, man.
No. I believe you. I mean, I was questioning you a while ago, but no, you say you was taking 65, and you're doing the arithmetic like I was, and you had all those sources. You know, it is what it is. But the thing about it is, I pretty much kind of rode off into the sunset around 2003. So you're now on pain pills in 2003. So I know how I was. Back in my day, I was the drinking crowd, and I was drinking a lot of whiskey and vodka, and I'd mess with some pain pills every here and there, but 2 to 4, that was max. I just never went there. I was a drinker. So, and I was always early to the buildings, didn't affect my performance, and, you know, that's just the way I was running. I was running pretty fast. But my question for you is, on 65 Vikes a day, did you need anything to sleep? What was your personal life like? I mean, did the pills change you from a personality standpoint?
You know, I can't really talk about, you know, I could tell you this. I was in a really bad marriage. Things weren't going very good at home. I'd rather be more on the road and working than to be at home. And that, you know, there was, you know, it was a lot of my fault. You know, my ex knew I was pounding painkillers, and she couldn't stop me. So it was just one of those things where I I just kept doing it. And I always wanted to be on the road because it was the only thing that was going right for me. And I think the reason I got so caught up in the painkillers is because the one thing that was going right for me was being taken away from me because of my neck. And the only thing I wanted to do was medicate and not feel anything. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I did take an excess of them when I didn't really need them. It was just one of those things where I didn't want to feel any pain. I had a lot of things occur in my life and, you know, a lot of deaths in my family. And, you know, especially when my sister died of a heroin overdose in 2003, that took me over the top. And I just didn't want to feel anything. So I just started medicating more and more and more.
Hey, Kurt, you know, a lot of the guys back in the day started messing around with the Oxycontin stuff, some of the heavy-duty stuff, and what you're talking about is more Vicodin ES, extra strength. I know the exact ones you're talking about. The Oxycontin's a little bit more stout of a pill for cancer patients and so forth. Did you ever delve into those higher-powered pills like that?
I took whatever I got my hands on, Steve. I won't tell you who, but there were sources where I could get Oxycontins, and I got them. You know, I had a lot of money, but, you know, there were times when I was strapped where I didn't have any pills, and I ran out because the 65 a day wasn't enough. Well, I started stealing them from my buddies. It was a really shameful time for me. You know, I had a lot of crazy stuff going on, bad marriage, you know, my career is being taken away from me, deaths in my family, just, you know, now I'm stealing from my friends because I don't want to feel anything, and it's, you know, I couldn't get my hands on it anymore, and it's just, I hated the person I became. I did what I could do, and I remember when WWE gave me the chance to go home and get myself straight, and I did. I mean, I at least got on a medication plan where I wasn't killing myself with painkillers. The doctor put me on morphine sulfate, 2 pills a day. Once I went through the withdrawal process, about 8 days, went to the doctor, and he put me on MS-Contin. I think it was 30 milligrams twice a day, and I stuck with that. But that's right when I was about heading out of WWE. That's when I asked for my release. And I went to TNA. The problem with TNA is when I got there, everybody drank. Everybody drank every night. You know, Steve, I didn't drink much. I think the only beer I had was with you after a pay-per-view when Shane McMahon told me, do not turn Austin down when he offers you a beer. So I went into your room and you offered me a beer and I drank one with you. But that was the only beer I had before that. I wasn't a drinker. So now I was taking those pills. I started having anxiety about breaking my neck because I already broke it 4 times. So in 2006, doctor put me on Xanax. So now I'm taking an anti-anxiety medication. I'm taking the MS-Contin. I'm drinking alcohol. Then what I did is I got smart as an addict, and I said, wait a minute. I'm going to save all these pills for the evening when I drink the alcohol. And I'll get my high that way. So that's what I did. And what that led me to was 4 DUIs in 5 years. What kind of alcohol did you go to, Kurt? I mean, were you a vodka guy, whiskey, beer? What were you drinking? No, I drank beer, and I hated it. I hated the taste. I just didn't want to feel anything. So I would drink until I usually drank about 10 beers. I would have 3 Xanax, 2 morphine sulfates all at the same time, and just medicate. And I did that every night. When I did get the DUIs, I never blew anything over a .09. I was always right near the, you know, it was .07, .08, .09. It was always barely. So fortunately, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I did not get hit with the DUI. I got reckless driving on all 4 cases. It's crazy. I mean, I should have, but it just turned out that way. And so, you know, did I learn my lesson? Yes. Did the law make me learn my lesson? No. They let me go. And that's pretty unfortunate. Pretty dang lucky, too, that you never went to jail, but you did learn your lesson at some point. You cleaned up, like you said, and I want to know what finally made you sober up. But first, I know what got Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall cleaned up: Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. Dallas and DDP Yoga saved Jake's life, as y'all know. Here's the thing.
The DDP yoga program is helping a lot of the boys stay in the business longer. Guys like AJ Styles, who's been all over the world, Kane, the Demon Kane, Chris Jericho, Y2J. Hell, all those guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame, and it's probably going to be due, first of all, to the fact that they're badass pro wrestlers, but they got these extra years going because DDP yoga help these guys out. Even Mick Foley's doing DDP yoga, and he's probably in the best shape of his life right now. Dude looks a million. He's great on Holy Foley. He's kicking ass as the GM over there on Monday Night Raw with Stephanie. And DDP has taken his life-changing program to a whole nother level with the DDP Yoga Now app on iOS and Android devices. Now, this app is badass because it's hands-on and it helps you track everything. So now you ain't got no more excuses about why you can't start DDP Yoga. The app means you can do it anytime, anywhere. You don't need a fancy yoga studio. You don't need any gym. The cool thing about the app is that you can do more than just DDP yoga workouts. It's got all kinds of tracking features, stuff like pain tracking, measurements, progress photos. That way you're held accountable. You stay track of your measurements, of your progress photos. Seeing is believing. So this app is everything. DDP Yoga Now app users can do the original workouts. They can do the new 2.0 workouts, the live workouts from the DDP Yoga Performance Center. It's got everything, all the bells and whistles you need in one little simple app. And to make it even easier than he's already made it for a limited time, you can get the DDP Yoga DVDs for 15% off, plus 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app. You got to try this thing out. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin. That's ddpyoga.com/Austin to take advantage of this great deal. I get emails from people all the time saying, hey, thanks for turning me on to DDP Yoga. Well, commit now. Change your life now. Go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. Hey, one more reminder, folks. I know this is a family-friendly version of the Steve Austin Show, but in the interest in keeping things real with Kurt Angle, he dropped a couple of very organic F-bombs in this podcast. They are coming up in a few minutes, and when you hear them, you'll understand why we made an exception to the rule in today's family-friendly podcast. So if you got your youngsters listening, anything like that, just giving you a heads up. Did you ever think, or did you ever look back, thinking you're this gold medal winner from '96 Olympics, just an American hero, and now all of a sudden you're strung out on pain pills and other kind of stuff and alcohol, and when you looked in the mirror, did you not like who you saw?
Yeah, man, Steve, it was a real shameful time for me, but I didn't really know how messed up I made my life until I got clean. A little over 3 years ago, I went to rehab and I got clean and sober. But what was this moment that says, hey, man, this is going nowhere fast, and I've done this before. I did it by myself one time, but now I got to get clean. What was the come to Jesus moment for you? Well, this is crazy. This is what an addict does. You know, I had an attorney call me and say, listen, you need to go to rehab. And I said, well, why? He said, it'll help with your DUI case. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll go to rehab. Hopefully they'll drop my DUI. I didn't go because I thought I had a problem. I went because I thought it would help my DUI case. Oh. When I got there, I realized I had a real serious problem. You learn so much in rehab, and they really instill it in your head, and it's to the point where they make you feel like an F-up, if I can say it. But they basically tell you, listen, you're a fuck-up, and you're going to keep fucking up. Even when you get clean, you're going to relapse. They scare the hell out of you, and they make you feel like your life's never going to get any better. So the best thing you can do is do everything you can not to ever touch it again. And I know a lot of addicts will relapse, and that's probably why they tell them, listen, if you do relapse, just get back on the train and keep going. Just forget it ever happened. But when I was in rehab, they scared me so much that I thought, well, life's never going to get any better. This is who I am. And if I don't change who I am, this is how it's going to end up. I'm going to probably end up dead. So, being there for 30 days and learning everything I did about my disease, it just made me realize this is not the life I want to live. Was it hard for me to say, damn, I'm not going to be able to ever take a pill or drink again? Yeah, that was tough. It's one of those things where I had a counselor in there tell me, listen, grow the hell up. And I thought, what's he talking about? I'm a grown up. I have 4 kids. I have a beautiful wife. I have a great job. What he's saying is, being an addict is childish, and you keep doing childish things. Grow your ass up and take responsibility. And I thought, wow, okay, I know what he's saying. I need the pills and the alcohol are not a good thing for Kurt Angle. So the only thing I can do is never touch it again. And up to this day, I haven't. Now, does my body hurt? My body's killing me, man. There are days, where I'm sore, and it's like, man, I'd love to take a painkiller, but it's just not worth it. I don't want to go back to that. And I don't know if you've ever had a sleep, but if you've ever been through withdrawal, it's the worst pain that I've ever experienced. And I know that scares me enough that I don't ever want to go to that again.
How bad was that, Kurt? No, I've never been addicted to anything. I slowed down on my drinking. I just cut my pain pills in half, my sleep medication in half. Yeah. Many.
You did it right.
And that's what
you did it right. Me, Steve, when I could tell you that you're shaking and you're literally shitting your pants and you're sweating and you can't stop moving, you can't get comfortable, and your whole body's in extreme pain. Your skin's crawling. It's the worst thing I've ever gone through, and I've done it twice, and I promised myself I would never do it again because it's one of those things where, if one thing is off, you could die. I mean, withdrawal is a really dangerous process. That's why you have to be under a doctor's care when you're going through it. The first time I went through it, I wasn't. I sat at home in my room for 7 days, and it was extremely painful. And I just isolated myself and stayed away from everybody and everything. That was the first time I did it. And it was actually right before WrestleMania when I wrestled Shawn Michaels. I was still kind of messed up when I wrestled Shawn at WrestleMania 21. I just got clean, and, I was still having a little bit of shakes and stuff, and it was hard for me, but, being in the ring made me forget about those things. So, thank God Vince had me get back on the road right away and keep my mind busy and keep doing what I love to do. And, I had a great match with Shawn, but was it the best I could have done? No. I could have done better. But, at the time, for what I was going through, the match was pretty incredible.
Through the course of your addiction and when you got really strung out on the pills and taking as many as you were, this is over the course of several years. And so through the course of those several years, other wrestlers had died and people before you had died. Did you ever think, hey, man, I better slow this down. I'm going to be one of those guys. I'm going to be, because you know how it is, Kurt. There will always kind of be, the boys always kind of see someone in a bad way, and it's like so-and-so's on death watch. They're going to be next. I mean, that's brutal to say, but we've both heard that term when guys get into a certain bad place, that they're so bad off, they think that's going to be the next guy. Did you ever think that you were on death watch?
I was. The people are telling me they're reading on the internet that WWE has me on death watch. It was pretty sobering feeling. I thought, wow, I know I was doing some crazy stuff, but they would literally think I might die. And I really didn't think about it, Steve. To me, I felt like I was invincible, even though my neck kept breaking. And the thing is, I didn't let my neck heal. I was taking a lot of painkillers. I just didn't think that anything was going to happen to me. I don't think anybody that's taking drugs thinks they're gonna OD. At least not 99% of them. I think that 99% of them are accidental. So I didn't have any kind of feelings like, oh gosh, I think I'm going to die. There were times I did OD, where I didn't wake up the next day until 4 in the afternoon. To me, that's OD. When you pass out, and you pass out for 18 hours and you're out, you should have been in the hospital. That happened to me a couple different times. And the WWE, when they caught wind of that, they started drug testing me right away. The crazy thing is, at the time, I was already cleared to take painkillers, so they couldn't keep me from doing it. I was also taking, at the time, I was taking Somas and Xanax. So even though they were monitoring me, I was allowed to take these pills. Now, you can't do it now. But back in, 2005, 2006, the drug program wasn't as solid as it is now. So, there were things that you could do as long as you had a doctor's script. So it was one of those things where when I got off the painkillers, I started taking a little more Soma, a little more Xanax to curb to bring me down. I can tell you this, I'm a very intense person. I'm a lot like you, Steve, because when you and I went in the ring, it was magic, and it was like two badasses going at it. I'm a very intense individual, so I always needed something to take that edge off after the matches. There's no way I could sleep, so I had to do something. I didn't know how to relax, and the older you get, the wiser you get. You find out that there are ways of relaxing besides taking drugs. Especially I started doing some meditating. Yes, I learned that in rehab, and I started doing quite a bit of that. It really does help. So I just didn't know how to turn it off. And it was always on.
But tell me about the Xanax and the Somas real quickly, because if you're taking 65 Vikes, or maybe you're trying to wean off of those, and for those people that don't know what a Soma is, probably most of the population does not know what a Soma is. It's a muscle relaxer. It's called Carisoprodol. Yeah. Comes in 350 milligram tablets. It used to be extremely popular drug of choice amongst the boys, especially on a short flight, 3-4, hamburger, vodka, you go to sleep. So,
right.
With that being said, don't nobody mess with these things. I'm just trying to give you an example of what was going on back when I was in the ring. So what were you taking your Somas up to? Because when you take a handful of Somas, how many did you go in? I'm 5 in or whatever. What were you doing with your Somas?
Well, I remember one night, I would say I took about 4 to 6 a night. But there was a night where the day I told you where I OD'd, where I did wake up till 4 in the afternoon. I literally had a show for WB and OVW. They wanted me to wrestle this talented individual down there the next day, and I couldn't sleep that night, so I just kept taking 2 Soma every hour, 2. I just wanted to sleep for 1 hour. So from 11 to 12 to 1 to 2, I just kept taking them. I took at least 14 of them, and that's when I didn't wake up. I probably slept for almost 18 hours, and the WB called, and they told my ex to get my ass to the hospital, and they were. The thing is, WB did everything they could to try to help me. I just didn't want to be helped. I just wanted to do the things I wanted to do, and I thought that as long as I could be in the ring and wrestle, nothing else mattered. And I found out that there are a lot of things more valuable than just wrestling.
But you know what? You when you mentioned that as long as you're in the ring, you're happy. It kind of reminds me a lot of Eddie Guerrero, because as many demons as Eddie had, he's one of the sweetest guys anybody ever knew in the history of wrestling, and one of the most talented. But man, when Eddie was in the ring, he didn't have any problems. But when he got out of the ring, that's when he had problems.
Yeah, I would compare myself to Eddie. I definitely had a lot of problems going on, and it just seemed like nothing else was really working out for me. And my only safe haven was being in the ring. I was good at it. I was, I didn't realize I was going to be as good as I was. The cool thing was, within my first year and a half, I was main event with you. That's, that doesn't normally happen from the date you start wrestling, and by the time your main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin at SummerSlam, it's kind of ridiculous. But it's just the only thing that ever went right for me, and including injuries. I had everything. My family members are dying like dead flies, and things aren't going well in my marriage, and it just. I didn't have anything but wrestling, and I felt like I would never have anything but wrestling. I figured that was my destiny. I was going to be a wrestler, and if my day comes, I was going to die in the ring. And I just figured I'm going to live my life recklessly and get in there and do the best I can and build a legacy for myself. I didn't think that anything else was that important. I never had time with my family. And, Cody and Kira, my kids, I never saw them. I was always on the road. So there wasn't anything for me to look forward to. It was just me being on the road and married to the business, and I didn't think that anything else mattered. And as long as I could wrestle and show the world that I was the best in the business, that's all that mattered.
But like we talked about, there's life after wrestling, and that's something you now know. All right, Kurt, let me thank one more sponsor before we wrap things up here and talk about your pro wrestling future, and that sponsor is DraftKings. And you know what I'm going to be doing next Saturday night, November 12th? I'm going to be watching UFC 205 at the Garden. Well, I won't be in New York City. I'll be on my couch watching Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor fight it out for the lightweight title, and I'm stoked about that. And the UFC 205 card is stacked, 6 fights on the main card. And if you really want to step up the action, then play Fantasy MMA at DraftKings.com and win your share of the $300,000 in cash prizes they're awarding next weekend. And if you use my promo code Steve, you can play for free with your first deposit. Playing Fantasy MMA at DraftKings is easy. You just pick 6 fighters. You can pick Alvarez and McGregor if you want. Stay under the salary cap and then rack up points based on how your fight team performs. You get points for significant strikes, takedowns, submissions, and knockouts. And if you outscore the competition, you take home the money. So get to DraftKings.com now to choose your fighters. And you could seriously cash in next Saturday night. Use my promo code Steve to play for free with your first deposit. That's my promo code Steve to play for free for your first shot at over $300,000 in prizes. Only at DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details. You know, there's a lot of ego that goes on in the business of professional wrestling, or probably just entertainment in general. Just because you're out there, the crowd's loving everything that you do, or they hate what you do because you're running heel, but that's success in your mind. Then all of a sudden you get away from that, and like you said, you couldn't come down, so you use Xanax or whatever. Hell, I used alcohol, but just being on the road is so much tougher than a lot of people would ever realize. Just with the performing part of it, going to the gym, you know, the fact that you're a professional athlete, I call us professional athletes, and just the whole lifestyle is very conducive to a lot of things going wrong with so much idle time on your hands at some points, trying to come down from the highs at other points, and just time away from your family, missing people, and sometimes medicating because you miss them. And, hey, man, you see so many of the guys that, and it's weird because in the business that we're in, you know, we're living like truck drivers because you're driving yourself all over the place. You're living like a rock star because you're partying like one, and you're training like a pro athlete because you're working like one in the ring every night, and you're putting your body through the gym every day with cardio. So, man, it just seems that a lot of the guys have just burned the candle at both ends, or 3 ends, if you will, and that's just led to so many guys leaving this world way too soon. Is your motivation now to stay clean basically because you're in a good place with yourself and you understand, you've matured enough to know that, hey, man, I've got loved ones depending on me. I got to keep my ass straight.
Well, you know what keeps me clean is the fact that I know that wrestling isn't everything. It's just a little part of my life. I always thought it was the only part of my life. I have a beautiful wife. I have my 5th child coming along, and I realized that family, my kids, my wife, that's way more important than any career I could have. And I didn't really, my whole life, I guess because, so many tragedies happened through my life that I felt like I shouldn't have any attachment to my family members. I shouldn't be attached to my wife or my kids because they're not going to be around long. My dad died when I was 16. He was a heavy drinker, and most likely he had an accident on doing his job. He's a construction worker. Most likely he died because he was drunk, legally drunk. Right. He had a lot of problems with alcohol. And, they never back then, in the mid '80s, they didn't test him to see if he was legally drunk or whatever. But he drank all day long, all day, all night, middle of the night. It was definitely a problem. Now, he was a great dad. He went to all my sporting events, supported me, was never mean to me, but he just had to have his alcohol. He died when I was 16, and I literally had my mother and my only grandmother that I grew up with. I didn't have any other grandparents, and my grandmother died right when I started college, and I spent a lot of time with her. I was with her every week when I grew up. So it was hard for me to lose her. And then, 3 years later, I lose my coach, Dave Schultz at Foxcatcher. John DuPont, who was a drug addict and alcoholic, shot and murdered Dave. So I didn't have my coach for 6 months. Fast forward to about 6 years, my sister Leanne died of a heroin overdose. It was like things just kept occurring. And it was like, well, you should know better. Don't get attached to anybody. Just be attached to yourself. And the only person you can count on is you, because everybody else is going to leave you. So that was my mentality. Yeah, it was. It was a defense mechanism, and that's what I thought. It's crazy. My brother a year and a half ago, fortunately, he killed his wife. He was high on drugs. But I was able to accept that, and I was able to get through that situation sober. It was really hard. I mean, to know my brother did that, and he's going to end up in jail, and his wife, who I was very close to, it's a tough pill to swallow, man, but it was like, I'm going to deal with this sober, and I'm going to feel real pain. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I realized that that's how you have to face life. If you don't, you're not going to live very long. So it wasn't about me numbing my feelings anymore or trying to numb the pain. It was, you're going to experience real pain, and you're going to start right now, and this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to do it clean. And that's what I did. So I'm not afraid to experience that anymore.
But what was your relationship like with your dad before he passed away? Were y'all close?
Yeah, he was a guy that was real quiet. He wasn't affectionate. He showed me how to shake hands like a real man. He was always at my sporting events, but he was always working. So he would cut out work early if I had a baseball game or a football game. He'd go watch it, then he'd go home. He'd have a few drinks, go to sleep. And, he'd wake up in the middle of the night, have a few more. He usually drank rum, straight glasses of rum, like 2 full glasses every couple hours. He just kept medicating himself. And I think I saw that as a kid, not that that was my drug of choice, but I saw how he did that. And I think that's how I learned how to do it for myself. Was he a good dad? He was a great dad. He never hurt me, always looked out for me. He just had to have his alcohol, and that was my dad's only setback.
Was Dave Schultz kind of turned into a father figure for you for a little bit there?
Yes.
When he was your coach? Because,
yes.
You lost your dad at 16, and then Dave comes into your life, and then he leaves your life. But obviously, was a guy that you looked up to tremendously.
Yeah, Dave, I met Dave when I was 18, right out of high school, and, I didn't know how good I was. He did. I met him it was a under 20 world championships. It was 19 and under, and I made the team. And that year, I think I took the silver in the worlds. It was a junior worlds. Dave was one of the coaches. He took a liking to me right away. This is long before Foxcatcher. This was a few years before Foxcatcher. I knew he liked me, and he thought I was special. And so I clung to Dave. And I remember when I joined Foxcatcher, the main reason was because Dave Schultz was there, and I knew he was going to coach me. He became my father figure. He became the guy that I wanted to be very much like. And I was in many ways. We had the same work ethic, and I was also on the same world team with Dave in 1995. When you have the guy that you looked up to your whole life, he's your idol, he's the one that you want to be like, and he's on the same world team with you, and you win the world, he takes 5th, and he comes to you and says, what did I do wrong? I was like, holy, Dave Schultz is asking me what he did wrong. Yeah. Am I now his equal? But I never felt that way. I always felt Dave was always that level above me. But he was the guy I wanted to be like in every way. His wrestling style, his personality, everything about him. Yes, he was my father figure, but he was also a dear friend. And he taught me how to believe in myself, I think, more than anything. All the technique he showed, he was better at giving people confidence. And I believe that's a really important factor in wrestling.
Man, when I first met you, was it 98, 99? I remember it was a television taping. It was in Jacksonville, Florida, and we were all sitting out in chairs by the production trucks. And
I remember that.
You'd been having some killer matches, 10, 12-minute matches, and just back and forth. I knew you were going to be a star. It looked like you always had supreme confidence back then. If you look back, if you can separate the two, are you more proud of what you accomplished as an amateur wrestler in the real sport of wrestling, or what you've accomplished as a professional wrestler, or can you separate the two?
Yeah, I can separate the two. It's hard. I mean, I never had that goal of being the best pro wrestler. It wasn't in the cards for me. All I cared about my whole life was winning a gold medal and being one of the best of all time in amateur wrestling. The pro wrestling was just icing on the cake. I didn't know I was going to do it till 1998 when I met you and decided that I would give it a try. So this was my new love. This was my new passion, and I did treat it very much like amateur wrestling. I didn't cut any corners. I learned the whole business. I studied tapes. I watched all of your matches, Steve. I knew if I wanted to be the best, I had to study the best. You in particular, I watched a lot of Bret Hart. I watched Shawn Michaels. But your style, because you were a lot more physical, I like that better, and I think that's why you and I had great chemistry. But I think looking back now, I didn't think I would have the success I had in pro wrestling. So to me, it wasn't as important, even though now I look at it and say, man, I did have a great career, and I really had some incredible matches. I just wish that I knew back then when I was wrestling Stone Cold what I know now. Back then, all I did was listen to you. I clearly knew nothing what I was doing. The thing is, I became a great leader because I was a great follower. I listened to you. I listened to the Triple H's and the Undertakers and the guys that really knew how to be a ring general, especially you. You were the guy that was able to change things if you wanted to because you felt like it. You felt like it was a good break in the match to do this instead of what we had planned. Not a lot of guys do that, especially today. Everybody wants to know the match from the beginning to the end, period. I remember when you and I would go over the match, you just pretty much said, blah, 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 blah. Okay, come back. This is the comeback and the finish. The rest we'll do out there. And it was easier for me because I knew I had a lot of confidence in you that you were going to carry me through the match. And all I had to do is remember the finish, or the comeback and finish. And I like doing that. But you showed me that you don't have to memorize every damn spot and do everything. You can call some of it in the ring. You hear a lot of wrestlers say, oh, back then I called it all in the ring. No, you didn't. Okay? Very few people have that talent. And until this day, Steve, even me, I haven't called a whole match in the ring. Now, maybe you have, but I didn't have that kind of talent. What I do have is I have a great memory, and that has been able to let me get away with a few different things that most people wouldn't. And it also helped me with promos because I couldn't write my own promos. I wasn't Stone Cold where I got to say what I wanted. I had the writers tell me what I had to say, and they would write it down for me. And all I had to do was look at the page 3 times, and it was memorized. So I was able to go out there and say what the writer wrote. I was also able to communicate the way he wanted to, which is another talent itself. But I wasn't the kind of guy that could go off the cuff. I mean, I used to watch you and The Rock after the show was over. Gosh, you guys would go for a half hour ad-libbing about stuff, and it was entertaining as hell. That's not me. That's not the person I am. I like to come prepared with everything and then throw it at you. I'm not the person that's going to just ad-lib and say, you know what, I'm just going to make it up as I go along. I can't do that. So I have a little bit of mix of both sides, but, what I do have is pretty special, and I've been pretty proud of the career I had.
But you were a natural-born athlete and a natural-born entertainer, as you would come to find out. I want to go back before we end up here. You said, loosely translating, you said you didn't know if there was life after wrestling. And a long time ago, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, and I've told this story many times, and he looked at me and goes, Steve, there is life after wrestling. I said, there is? He goes, you're damn right there is. And he was right. So now, as you're still out there doing some of the indie shots at 47, you're slowing down. Do you want a big finish with WWE? Do you want to do something with TNA? What will you do to transition from the indie scene into the next phase of your life, if you know what that might be?
Steve, I've come to the realization that nobody's going to give me anything. You know, WWE doesn't owe me anything. TNA doesn't owe me anything. They both treat me very well. And I had incredible careers there. The crazy thing is I had a better career in TNA than I did in WWE. That's hard for me to say, but it's true. Any fan that's watched both would also tell you that. So is it upsetting that, you know, I spent a good portion of my career in a company that most of the WWE fans didn't watch? Yeah, it does kind of suck, because and not that it was wasted, but it was like, wow, I wish they could have seen me in my prime. But I'm okay with it. I've come to the realization that I don't even think WWE's going to call me. You know, I sat around, took this year off. I figured they would get a hold of me, and they want to do something. But, you know, it's okay. You're right. Paul Orndorff is absolutely right. There is life after wrestling. It's not the most important thing in the world to me. I'm ready to take the next transition of my life, and that's fatherhood. And you know, I'm doing some acting. I signed with APA and the agency in Hollywood, and now I'm doing the Angle Strong program to help addicts in recovery. We have an Angle Strong app that's coming out soon. That's a very cool app that will keep people updated, try to keep them in recovery. If they're in trouble, they can hit the app and somebody will come to their aid. It's kind of like Uber of addicts. So it's a really cool app that we came up with, and I'm looking forward to starting my new life with that and try to help other people that have gone through the same thing I.
So how can people find the app? When will it be available?
We have just finished it. I would say within the next month it will be available. We are signing the contracts right now as we speak, so it won't be long. I'd say within a month it'll be up and running, and I will be the name and face of it. So it should be pretty cool. It'll be challenging. I know this isn't a glamorous business to be in, but I know somebody's got to do it. And, you know, I know there are a lot of people that stuck their neck out for me to save my life. And I just want to do the same for them. That's one thing you learn in rehab, being an addict in recovery, is that, you know, the only thing you can do to keep your life busy is to help other people and keep them from making the same mistakes you made. And if they already made mistakes, get them on the right path and try to get them in the right direction.
Man, we spent a lot of time talking about, you know, the trials and tribulations of some of the stuff that you went through. But I just had to talk to you when I saw that headline, because you remember I texted you immediately, and I was like,
I know.
Crazy. I said, this is not the Kurt Angle that I knew, because I mean, you know, at your height of your addiction, I was gone, and I would just, you know, randomly say, okay, Kurt Angle DUI, Kurt Angle DUI, this, that. I was like, oh man, I said, this guy's not doing so great. Man, I'm so glad you're doing it so much better. I'm so glad you're clean. You'll go down as one of the greatest of all time in the history of pro wrestling. I just always took a liking to you because you're just a blue-collar guy. You worked your ass off, and nobody handed you nothing. And I've never seen anybody climb to the top ranks of pro wrestling as fast as you did and pick it up at such an accelerated level. And so you were just a blue-chip talent waiting to happen, and it was a good thing, you know, you and WWE crossed paths in '98, and you signed up and had the career that you've had. So I'm glad you're I'm glad you're in a better place now, Kurt. I've always considered you a very close friend. You know, guys like us, we don't call each other all the time. We don't text each other all the time. But as soon as we see each other, just like old times. So, I'm just so glad you're doing. I'm just so glad you're doing great.
I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks, man. I enjoyed talking to you too.
Well, man, I appreciate talking to you about what you've been through, and I'm glad you're on the other side of it. And anytime you get any information on the app, if you'll just text it to me or whatever, I'll put it out on the podcast so I can help you out.
I really appreciate it, Steve. Thanks, man.
Kurt, it was good talking to you, man.
You too, as always.
Kurt, always remember Fresno.
You son of a... I hate you for that, Steve. And the only time I ever blew up.
All right, thanks a lot, Kurt. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, man. All right, my friend. Bye.
All right, everybody, give me to go home. Q, it's time to wrap up his podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do, I want to say thank you to Kurt Angle for being very candid and honest about some of the issues you had in the business of pro wrestling. It's always a pleasure to talk to a real good friend, and glad that Kurt is in a good place. I give you something to watch. I've given you the match to watch with me and Kurt Angle from about 2001, but like I said, that women's Hell in a Cell match from this past pay-per-view was so impressive. If you can get on the WWE Network, or maybe it's on YouTube by now, check out Charlotte versus Sasha Banks in the Hell in a Cell match, first ever female Hell in a Cell match. And they did a kick-ass job. They headlined and main evented that pay-per-view. That's huge and a big responsibility, and they delivered on all fronts. So swig a beer to both ladies, Charlotte and Sasha Banks. Check that match out. They told a great story, and that's pro wrestling. Hey, man, the new season of Broken Skull Challenge, the toughest, baddest show on television, premieres on CMT on Sunday, November 13th at 10/9 Central. God dang, you're going to enjoy this season. I'll give you that much. Just watch it. Set your DVRs. So I'm going to be releasing some new shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin and BrokenSkullRanch.com. There's some of the new designs that I wore on the set of Broken Skull Challenge. They will be available soon. And if you're looking for the best damn IPA available, get the Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Stop into the brewery if you're in L.A., 140 Main Street in El Segundo. Pick it up at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California, or order it from InsideTheCellar.com or BrokenSkullRanch.com if you live in a state that they ship to. You can find everything at BrokenSkullRanch.com, including the Broken Skull Cold Steel Knife. And if you want the best price on the baddest knife on the planet, go to Amazon to get it. It's $75 on Amazon, and use my links when you go. All my Amazon links are at the podcast1.com website. Click on the Killer Deals button in the top right corner of the page, and then hit the Steve Austin Show button. I got Amazon links for USA, UK, and Canada. Use my Amazon links whenever you're doing any online shopping. Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast to help us pay our production costs, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. There's no hidden fees or charges. Just buy whatever you're planning on buying and help out the podcast in the process. Bookmark it so you can find it easier. You'll also find links to all of the great sponsors of this here podcast. I appreciate y'all supporting the sponsors because they're the ones that let me do this for you free twice a week. So big thanks to ddpyoga.com/Austin. Get 15% off the DDP Yoga DVDs and 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app for a limited time. And to DraftKings, use my promo code Steve to play for free this weekend. To Simply Safe, go to simplysafeaustin.com to get free shipping on your order and get a free keychain remote worth $25. And the Dollar Shave Club. Sign up at dollarshaveclub.com/Steve and get your first month of razors free. Just pay shipping. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road. I want to say thank you to Drop Stop, one of the great sponsors of this show. Drop Stop is the original patented seat gap filler, as seen on TV Shark Tank. Get the original Drop Stop at buydropstop.com and use code STEVE for 2 free gifts and free shipping. Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One right after this.
AP Update, I'm Ross Simpson.
Are we going forward together, or are we going to be pulled backwards by someone who wants to bully us?
Hillary Clinton didn't mention Donald Trump by name during a campaign rally in Dade City, Florida today, but former Miss Universe Alicia Machado, who introduced Clinton, said Trump was cruel to her when she put on weight and he called her Miss Piggy.
Trump was overwhelming. I was scared of him. He made fun of me, and I didn't know how to respond.
Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller has deleted a post on his official Twitter account that used a sexually explicit and derogatory term for women when he referred to Hillary Clinton. Last year, a post on Miller's Facebook page appeared to endorse a nuclear bombing of the Muslim world. AP Update, I'm Ross Simpson.